Maurice Hibbard with a Grandpa Mo thought and while for 7/16/19. The experience with George and the fact that he was called gay made me have to think through the years, actually, about what is a homosexual. I remember in 1954 when I went to summer camp with the reserves that one man asked me if I was queer. And I thought, man, well, there was an expression in Appalachia, queer. A person is kind of different. He's queer, and I was different than the average person. So I said, well, I guess I am a little queer. And so he began to go around and saying, Hibbard is queer. And it wasn't until that fall that I learned what queer was, because we had some outstanding people, particularly one man that was so talented in music. He played the organ and the piano and sang, and he was just a genius. And then he just disappeared from the scene. And so one day I asked somebody, what happened to him? And they said, well, he got kicked out of Asbury, he and a group of young men, because they were queer. They're queer. And then they explained to me what queer was. Then I meet George, have that encounter with George. And then I remember that during the 50s, 60s, 70s, into the 80s, that there was a policy from the government side that homosexuals were not to be trusted and not to have any kind of secret. And they were kind of purged from the scene. I was aware during my military experience that from time to time there were young men who sought counseling from me because they had been found to be homosexuals and were being processed out of the Air Force. So I began to ask people that I had met that were homosexuals, when did they realize they were homosexuals? And almost 100% said they don't ever remember being attracted to the opposite sex. Then we had the period when people were coming out. They'd been in the closet. And then we had the point where people openly were living together. And I think almost every family, somewhere in that family, somebody came out of the closet. And it's very embarrassing for a lot of parents and family members. But then when I began to know some of the people within my own extended family, I'd ask them, when did they become gay? And they said they don't ever remember being attracted to the opposite sex. And then I realized that homosexuals were created by God and are God's children as much as I was. And they should have every right that I have. And so my position now is, homosexuals are human beings and have a right to be loved and to love as anyone else in our society.